Be Quiet's new light base dual chamber cases come in 600 and larger 900 versions with black and white colour options and a choice of fan configurations. We're saving the larger light base 900 for a featured build later, but today we're taking a close look at the light base 600LX that supports ATX motherboards, 400mm graphics cards, dual 360mm radiators, and comes with 4 pre-installed Lightwings LX fans. So let's not waste any more time and dive straight into this review. So this is the new Be Quiet Light Base 600. It's available in a couple of different versions in either black or white colour schemes. The LX includes 4 pre-installed Lightwings 120mm fans, 3 reverse blade and 1 forward blade fan. DX version comes without any fans. The Light Base 600 LX features fully windowed front and side panels for a panoramic view of all your PC components, with RGB illumination from every angle from the huge ARGB LED strip. The orientation can be switched to inverted or horizontal in seconds thanks to an intuitive quick release foot design. The spacious interior design allows for installation of up to 2 360mm radiators simultaneously, ATX motherboards including back connect, graphics cards up to 400mm long, and CPU coolers up to 170mm tall. The case includes 4 Be Quiet Lightwings LX fans, 1 forward blade and 3 reverse blades, plus 2 ARGB fan hubs. So as I say, this is the smaller out of the 2 versions. The Light Base 900 will be doing a featured build in that in maybe a month or two's time, but this is the Light Base 600. It's slightly smaller with dimensions of 305mm wide by 455mm high by 450mm deep. The front I/O connectivity consists of 2 USB 3.2 Type A ports, a single USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, a combined 3.5mm audio jack for headphones and mic, power, reset and RGB buttons. The core chassis is steel, some of the side panels are also, there's some plastic and there's tempered glass in here, so on the side and the front you have tempered glass panels. All these panels are quite easy to remove. There's some thumb screws though that you have to remove first, the captive thumb screws, so they don't fall out all over the place. But a lot of cases now, especially dual chamber cases, come with quick release side panels, so there's no screws in them at all. So maybe a slightly older style design, but it does keep side panels more secure with thumb screws. So this tempered glass side panel, that's removed by taking out a couple of captive thumb screws, and it just slides backwards and then it pulls out, comes off the case very easily. And you notice in this white version, I don't think there's any tint on that tempered glass side panel at all. Top panel's also very easy to remove, just a single thumb screw at the back, and then that slides out towards the back and then it lifts out quite easily. It's got this kind of slotted vent in the top panel. You can also see a dust filter integrated into there. It's a nylon filter, but the filter isn't actually removable. You have to take the whole panel off to get to the filter for cleaning. The front panel glass is also removable, but there are a couple of screws that you need to take out for that. They're not captive screws, just standard Phillips head screws. So one at the top, one at the bottom to remove, and then that slides out sideways. Again, it's clear tempered glass on the front panel. You notice that there isn't any support at all in this front corner. So once you remove the glass, there is a bit of flex in the chassis there. It is quite stiff, not as bad as some cases that we've looked at that are similar to this, but there is a bit of flex in it there, so you do need to be careful with the front glass removed. The right hand side panel, again, it's just 2 captive thumb screws. Loosen those off, panel slides backwards and it comes out quite easily. And you can see this is a completely vented side panel, ultra fine mesh in there, but as well as that, it has got a nylon dust filter. And this one can be removed, just have to slide it backwards a little and then it pulls out, so that one can be removed completely for cleaning. The floor of the case can be removed too. Again, it's just a single thumb screw down there and it slides out, but we'll take a look at that later when we look at the floor of the case. Inside this main chamber, you'll notice with the Light Base 600 LX, it comes with 3 Lightwings LX reverse blade fans, so they're installed on this side mount here. Only problem with that is if you build a system in here and you put some fans on the floor, you will probably also want that as an intake on the floor, and you would want some more of those reverse blade fans. However, these fans aren't available at all separately. I don't know whether they're due to come sometime in the future. There's no official word from Be Quiet on that, but it seems really strange that you can't buy those fans separately, because if you do install fans on the floor as intakes, you'll have to use the standard forward blade Light Wings LX fans, and they just don't look as good as the reverse blade ones would do. You also get one more Light Wings LX fan. That's a standard forward blade version installed in the rear. It's a 120mm version. This side mount, you can only install 120mm fans, so it's up to 3 120mm fans. Alternatively, on there you can install up to a 240mm radiator. Officially that doesn't support a 360mm radiator. Potentially you could fit a 120 on there also. At the top, this does support 140mm fans, so it's either two 140mm fans at the top or two 120mm fans, or again up to a 360mm radiator. Be Quiet doesn't say officially that it'll support a 280, but I guess you should be able to get a 280mm radiator in there, because there are 2x 140mm fan mounts up there. But you can install up to a 360, so again a 120 or a 240 or 360mm radiator. Same on the floor, it's either two 140mm fans or three 120mm fans, or up to a 360mm radiator, so again 120, 240 or 360 radiator on the floor. And potentially you could install a 360 on the floor, a 360 on the roof, and a 240 in the side mount simultaneously. And then at the rear of the case, it's just a single 120mm mount. So on here, you can either install a 120 fan, 120 radiator, or a 120 flat res on there.
If you're looking for a new chair, then you should definitely check out Booley's. I'm currently sat on their Ninja Pro gaming chair, which is one of 3 models from their gaming series, alongside the Elite and the Master. So if you're looking for something new to stick in your setup that you can sit on and game and work, then I recommend definitely checking out boolies.co.uk.
In terms of motherboard support, so it's up to ATX format. There's no eATX motherboard support, but it will support ATX, micro ATX and mini ATX. All the cutouts are there as well for back connect motherboards, so you can fit either ATX or micro ATX back connect motherboards in here. MSI Project Zero, Asus BTF will work inside the Lightbase 600. 7 PCIe slots, so 7 horizontal PCIe slots. You can also use vertical mounting in the case. Maximum graphics card length is up to 400mm long, so that should support more or less every graphics card currently available today. Maximum CPU cooler height is up to 170mm tall. In terms of cable management, round this side you've got all the usual cutouts around the motherboard tray. So there's a couple at the top here for standard motherboards, and then there's all the back connect cutouts here for micro ATX and the back connect cutouts for standard ATX. These bottom cutouts are for back connect and for standard motherboards. There should be enough space just to push through cables using a standard ATX motherboard through the bottom part of those cutouts. Down the side here, there's also 3 large cutouts with rubber grommets. Back of the case is in a typical dual chamber layout. So one side, fan mount, rear motherboard I/O cutout, and then 7 PCIe slots. And then at the opposite side, there's the mount for an ATX power supply. Inside this right-hand chamber, again, it's very typical of a dual chamber case. There is this kind of door that hinges open here, just pushes it in on some quick release clips. That's quite easy to open. On here you can install a couple of 2.5-inch SSDs or 2.5-inch hard drives. There's some rubber mounts that you push in there and that holds the hard drive in place. If this door's getting in your way during the installation, you just need to take out one of the screws, either the bottom or the top screw you can take out. And once you've got one of the screws out, that door just comes off. Gives you a bit more access round to this side. One thing this case hasn't got that we've seen on the Antec C8 is a divider here between the fans and this right hand section. We saw that in the Antec C8. That was a good bit of design to help direct the airflow to the fans and through to the other chamber. And then towards the bottom here is a 3.5-inch drive cage, so you can out of the box install one on the inside of the bracket using the rubber mounts again. If you want to install another 3.5-inch drive, there is an optional 3.5-inch drive cage that slots into there, so you can install up to 2 3.5-inch drives. This bracket can also be removed, so there's just a few screws that you need to take out. And that just folds out a little and just pulls out. It's a little awkward, but it's not too difficult to remove. One thing that Be Quiet has done in this case, in the white version, you've got all white cables and all the connectors on the ends of those cables are all white, which is something that not every case manufacturer gets right. In the black version, the cables are all black to suit the different color schemes. On the floor of the case here and in the roof are two ARGB fan hubs. So they are PWM fan hubs and 3-pin 5-volt ARGB hubs. And on each of those are 6 ports. Then on the floor of the case, as I said earlier, this whole panel at this side can be removed. There's a single thumb screw there, captive thumb screw, undo that, and then the panel can be removed. But not only can the floor of the case be removed, the feet can also be removed too. These are ABS plastic feet. As you can see, you just twist the feet and they pull out. And there's a good reason for that. The feet can be either relocated to the top of the case in the exact same way, and then the case can be used in an inverted layout. Alternatively, you can then put the feet on the right-hand side panel and lay the case down and run it in a vertical orientation. They're really easy to remove and install. In fact, if anything, they are a little too easy. There's really little pressure needed to remove those from the case. And in fact, if you do move the case around on the desk and kind of slide it around, these can kind of come a little bit dislodged and potentially work their way out the cell. So you do have to be quite careful with those feet. And as also you can see, they're only made from quite thin plastic. They have a bit of flex to them. So they look okay. They don't look the best quality, but it'd be interesting to see how they are in terms of durability over time. If this plastic over time becomes brittle, will that still be able to hold up to the weight of the case, especially in the larger light base 900. As I say, thumb screw at the back, remove that, and then the panel just slides off. And as you can see, very similar to the top panel, if not identical. It's got the same slot kind of pattern to it. And then on the other side, there is a nylon dust filter. And again, this dust filter can't be easily removed from the floor, so to clean the dust filter you do have to remove the whole panel. Included with the case you get a Lightbase 600 user manual. It's a very in-depth and detailed user manual. There's some good images on there showing you how to install hardware. You also get a small accessories box. In there there's a few zip ties to use. They are black zip ties. I would have liked to have seen some white zip ties. There's also various different screws for installation of motherboard, power supply, etc. There's all the rubber mounts for the hard drives there. And you also get a series of brackets. So this one here is installed up in the back of the case there. The support for the power supply for when you invert the case, I guess. A couple more steel panels or brackets. These are for when you turn the PCIe slots vertically. So this one goes across the top. And then that's just a cover plate that covers up the hole that is left from vertical mounting. And then if we just switch the case around again, you've got this bracket included in the accessories. You can see it can be adjusted in and out. And that's an anti-sag bracket for graphics cards, so that will attach here. Looks like a decent GPU anti-sag bracket. So for the test system build, I used a back connect motherboard. It's the MSI Z790 Project Zero. CPU is an Intel Core i7-14700K. Graphics card is the Gigabyte RTX 4080 Aero. For memory, it's a 48 GB kit, so two 24 GB modules of Corsair Dominator titanium. It's DDR5 7000. Storage is a 1 TB Corsair MP700. It's a PCIe Gen 5 M.2 NVMe SSD. CPU cooler is this new Be Quiet Light Loop 360. It's a 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, the white version to match with the white case. Power supply is a Seasonic Vertex GX 1200 80 plus gold 1200 watt ATX 3 and PCIe 5 power supply. Tested the case with the AIO radiator mounted in the roof and the stock fan, so the 120 on the rear and the 320mm fans that come pre-installed in the side. I did add some additional testing in with 320mm Be Quiet Silent Wings Pro 4 mounted in the floor to see what effect that had on the thermal performance. If you want to see the full testing methodology, head over to kitguru.net where there will be a written review page. All the testing methodology is on there. For the thermal load, it's my usual combined Cinebench R23 and 3D Mark Speedway stress test ran simultaneously for 30 minutes. We tested the Lightbase 600 600LX with a 360mm Aero CPU cooler with the radiator installed at the top of the case and with and without bottom fans. In its default configuration with just the stock side and rear fan installed, the thermal performance of the CPU and GPU are what we would expect from a good airflow case at 74 and 45 degrees over ambient respectively. Removing the glass side panel and the top panel give a 3 to 4 degrees C drop in both the CPU and GPU temperature, but adding bottom fans to the system didn't have a significant effect on the GPU temperature as we were expecting, but it had a similar effect as removing case panels. So a few degrees lower GPU temperature over ambient compared to the default configuration. However, adding the 120mm fans to the floor produced the lowest internal system temperature, so it's worthwhile doing this if you have some cash left over in your budget to buy additional fans. So I made a few notes during the installation process, a couple of things I want to talk about. The one thing I noticed around the right hand side compartment, there isn't much in terms of cable management. Yes, you've got all the cutouts there on the motherboard tray and there are some eyelets to strap cables down to, but there aren't any included Velcro straps or anything really to tidy up the cables, but you can manage with the eyelets on the back of the motherboard tray and the included zip ties. You can still make quite a decent job and it does look quite tidy, but it is missing those additional cable management features that you might find in other cases. The cable cutouts at the bottom of the motherboard tray, they don't seem to extend past the motherboard at all, which is a bit of a problem if you're trying to feed through a USB 3 header connection or anything bigger than like a fan header. There's just not really enough space in there. I would have liked to have routed the 12 volt high power cable down underneath the motherboard rather than going around into the side through those cable management cutouts. Just looks a bit neater. So those cutouts at the bottom of the motherboard tray could be extended slightly. There's no removable fan and radiator brackets. So in the top and the floor and the side, all the fan and radiator mountings are fixed in position. It's not so bad for the top and the side, there's plenty of space to work, but for installing fans and radiators on the floor, it would be really useful for that to be a removable bracket. With it fixed in place, it's awkward installing fans and radiators down there. You have to tip the case over and install from the underside, which is awkward. I feel like that could have been better, and in a case priced at 170 or 180 pounds, which it is in the UK, I'd expect to see some removable radiator brackets included for that price. Other cases in this price range and this style would at least have a removable bottom radiator bracket. You also have to tip the case on its side to remove the bottom panel to clean out the dust filter. Again, I think this could have been done better. A removable dust filter that you can actually remove while the case is stood up would be a lot easier. When you've got a system built inside this case, it's going to be quite heavy and quite awkward tipping it over to remove that bottom panel. And during the installation, while you're moving the case about, the feet do move and come a bit dislodged. They do rotate themselves as you're moving the case around and building a system. So you have to just be careful when you come to stand the system back up that the feet are correctly fitted in position, or you may have a system that could tip over or cause some damage maybe to your desk or something like that if it wasn't 100% stable, so you just have to watch out for that. But the overall build quality of the chassis frame, the outer panels, that all seems high. There is a little bit of flex in the top panel when you remove the glass, but it's no more than any other cases we've seen. In fact, there's other cases similar to this have a lot more flex in that top corner. The colour matching of the white on these panels, so the different materials, the shade of white is very similar between the steel, the glass and plastic parts, which again, some cases you see a big difference in the shades of white between different types of material. Thermal performance seems good with just the stock fans that are included, and the fans are reasonably quiet and the RGB lighting effects are good. They do have just standard PWM and ARGB motherboard header connections, so if you want you can connect them to the motherboard, but alternatively you've got those two fan hubs that do the PWM speed and RGB control included with the case, so you've got options with the fans depending on how you want to connect them up. The hardware support is good too. Big graphics cards can be installed in here, no problem. Multiple radiators can be installed simultaneously, so there's good options for custom cooling. Even though EATX motherboards aren't officially supported, I don't see any real reason why you couldn't install one in here. It would just mean that the motherboard would slightly overhang the motherboard tray, which may affect the aesthetics of the system, but physically an EATX motherboard will fit in here. Another thing I just need to mention also is we did notice a bit of damage with this case when it arrived. The steel frame that surrounds the tempered glass side panel was bent slightly at the rear where one of the screw points is, which meant it affected the alignment of the tempered glass down the front of the case. This potentially happened during shipping, maybe it could have been mishandled, we're not sure, but it's something for Be Quiet to look at to check that the foam or the polystyrene padding inside the case is substantial enough to stop any damage happening. And also, we noticed a few rounded screw heads from the factory as well, so factory tightening, that might need to be something that's looked at too. A couple of the rear fan screws had the heads rounded, and there was also one on the 3.5-inch drive cage. So overall, it's a pretty decent case. It's got good hardware support, thermal performance is good. For the most part, the build quality is good. I would have liked to have seen removable radiator trays and maybe some improvements to the cable management features. But if you paid £170, £180 for it in the UK, which is its price, you probably won't be disappointed. So that's the Be Quiet Lightbase 600 LX. Let me know what you think of the case in the comment section. If you've enjoyed watching this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. If you enjoy what we do here at Kit Guru and you want to help support us, you can always head over to our store and pick up some of our merch, or you could even subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, if you want to catch up on all the in-depth technical reviews, head over to the website.